host, Kevin Barrier, and welcome to 5 Dubs Marketing Pros, where we highlight awesome brands and the stories behind them, and maybe just maybe geek out on all things marketing. All right, friends, so let's dive in. So today we're exploring an ever-growing tsunami that's reshaping the way businesses and organizations connect with their audience on social media. We're talking about the role of AI and where it fits in building an online presence for brands and how it's changing the way we as marketers create, manage, and grow social media strategies. We'll be breaking down the benefits that AI brings, the risks to watch out for, and why keeping that authentic touch is still the ultimate key to real engagement. And to help us make sense of it all, I am thrilled to introduce a returning guest, also a fellow digital geek, and just an overall level 1250 mage powerhouse in the social media marketing and strategy world. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer of Cloud Campaign, Ross Gray. Hey, man.
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Yeah, you've been like burning the candle at both ends. You just got back from, like, you're on the conference circuit right now, right? 'Tis the season. Where'd you just come from?
Yeah, we were sponsoring a conference in Chicago, which I made some really poor decisions and took a red eye out there, went to the conference, and then took an 8 p.m. flight home. And that was really poor planning, 42 hours straight. So I won't be doing that again.
That sounds horrible. That sounds horrible. I've done my share of traveling, but it's when it's so condensed like that, it's just, it like takes everything out of you, including your soul. What did you get? Were you able to get a deep dish while you were there?
You know what? I didn't even venture outside of the conference, unfortunately, because it was such a short turnaround. But it was at Meta's headquarters in Chicago, which was pretty cool.
That's cool. What's that like?
Large windows,
okay.
Right in the heart of downtown. So yeah, it was a really cool space.
I had no idea Meta had a headquarters in Chicago. I go to Chicago once a year. Oh, okay. I go once a year usually for an industry conference, and yeah, I had no idea. Man, I'm gonna have to like sneak in. I guess I probably shouldn't sneak in. Probably should make an appointment. But well, if you were to have gotten a deep dish, what's the topping? Like, what's your topping of choice?
Man, I'm really just gonna let everybody down here. I'm kind of a meat and potatoes guy. I would just go cheese. That's what would be on it.
Just go cheap. Wouldn't put like Italian sausage in it, right? Isn't that like the classic?
Maybe, I don't know if they make a barbecue chicken deep dish, but yeah, either that or cheese.
All right. We will make sure not to put this out into the Chicago market. I'll keep you safe. Well, awesome. Well, good. Well, listen, we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm excited to geek out over it. I love AI. I think AI is amazing when you use it as a tool where, you're the hammer and it's the nail versus the other way around. But it's still so new. It's, really kind of came to be in November 2022. OpenAI puts out their, like early release beta. And by January 2023, it's like on the main world stage, hitting by storm. And like content seems to be one of the biggest things that anyone will use AI for, right? Small, medium-sized businesses for social media, for their website, right to college students trying to get a leg up on their, on their final papers. So, with that, I think there's been a lot of successes and a lot of areas of opportunity for AI. So I want to talk a bit about specifically AI in the social media space. I also love social media, have sold my soul to it. I love to be able to say it's because it's what I do. So, I have to, but if I was not a marketer, I would probably still love social media. So this will be fun. So you've been in the social media world for a long time with Cloud Campaign, and you seem to really take pride, or maybe not pride, but I mean, you always kind of really stay up on what's current and what's in real time. You're a very insightful and thoughtful marketer where it comes to that. So, talk to me a little bit about from a social media perspective, how can businesses and news organizations, because that's a part of our audience, how can businesses and really, news media organizations or anyone use AI as a tool for social media, but how to use it in a way where like that human touch isn't lost, right? Talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. And the space is evolving just so quickly, like you mentioned. The output compared to the beginning of this year is completely different. And there's kind of two sides, right? So there's the internal business function side that AI can really, really help with, and I'll dive into that. And then there's also the content creation side. And I think on that side, it's really important to not lose your humanity. And I think a lot of social media managers are a little bit anxious about this, but the reality is I would look at AI as a tool, and think of it, your social media presence is now can be kind of augmented, but not taken over by AI tools that exist. And so I think a great example of this is, you know, balancing authenticity and that human touch with that more generic content that everybody needs, right? Because not every single piece of content that goes out is going to be this incredible, elaborate, thing that you spent a lot of time on. Um, and we've done a lot of internal testing to find what type of content performs best. And it's not AI generated content. So, in terms of that generic content that I referenced, right, AI will actually outperform humans in that. So, just kind of basic picture with, maybe a caption. When we did internal testing with it, we found that the AI generated content actually slightly outperformed the human generated content. However, still by far the best performing content was that, the meet the team content, the the content that brings authenticity to your brand, kind of goes behind the curtain and lets your audience meet the company. It's not just this nameless, faceless organization. There's humans running it. And that content continues to outperform AI, and I think will for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so what you're talking about, kind of like that evergreen content versus real time, authentic in the moment content. And, I'm a fan of that Monday inspo quote. And, AI can do a great job at that. But, AI can't create content based on information it doesn't have. And it may not, at least yet, it doesn't recognize like who the team is within, you know, MDDC ad services or cloud campaign. There is a long way to go. Now AI is growing quickly. I mean, it's evolving quick. You're absolutely right. Like the output now versus 6 months ago has what 4.0 has drastically changed. And what ChatGPT now is like ChatGPT o1 or something like that. It's like their more thoughtful model is what they're saying, and like that has really evolved very quickly. But so you talked about like, so you did a bit of a study in house, about how AI versus human content performed. And when I saw that, um, I was like, oh God, like, what does this mean? Right. For any human marketer, it's like, are they taking over? Is this the beginning of Skynet? Talk to me a little bit about that study that you did, and, dive a little deeper into kind of what it uncovered. But then be gentle with us marketers. Give us the hope that we're not being taken over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't take too much credit for it. It was actually mostly our social media manager, Maya, that put it all together and ran the test, along with our head of marketing, Kurt. But it was a really interesting study. So basically, what we did is we took, generic content, the typical, like you said, kind of evergreen content, we would do human caption, human, created image, and post that out there. And then we would take AI generated image, AI generated caption, and then, a kind of a hybrid of those to figure out what performed the best. And it was AI, I believe, but I believe it was AI generated caption, with an AI generated image actually performed the best. But the big caveat that will make marketers happy again is the fact that more authentic content that isn't just those, evergreen posts well outperformed anything AI related.
Yeah, the
Um,
volume of engagement, right? When I saw it, I was like, oh man, oh AI, I loved you, but now I hate you. But it's so, it just kind of like eked out the human side of things. But when you look at like the volume of engagement that evergreen content versus real-time content generates. I mean, I think, as of right now, yeah, it's authenticity, wins the day. So us fellow marketers, anyone listening that is in the marketing world, calm down. We're good. We're fine. We're fine. Well, very cool. That's awesome. And that's, for Cloud Campaign, that's an awesome thing that your company did. I mean, that's the data that agencies need to know, that businesses need to know to really understand how to use AI as a tool the most effectively. So, that's kind of the how, right, of how businesses could use AI and social media to help up a brand. But, why is it important, right? It's like social media it's time intensive. It is not, I mean, no marketing should be a set and forget style of marketing, but I mean, social media takes time. Business owners may not have that creative gene, logical thinkers. It's tough for logical thinkers to create AI or create content. I mean, so, why is it important for that time to be spent for businesses to use social? What do you think about that?
Yeah. And you're right, it is time intensive. And I think more so than people realize, and very often, especially with SMBs, I think they're like, oh, I have this relative, nephew, niece, they can run our social for us. And I think quickly that ends up changing. It's at this point, God, I should remember this when we were raising our rounds of financing. I had to remember these stats that I don't anymore, but I believe it was 75% of SMBs outsourced to a marketer at this point. And there's a reason for that. It's because they don't want to manage it. And there's also a reason that so many businesses are adopting social media, and that number continues to grow. So in terms of why it's important, one of the latest stats that I saw is about 80% of companies or of potential buyers before they use your services, before they buy your products, they actually look you up on social media. And I remember when I was going to school for marketing, which pretty much everything I learned is obsolete at this point.
It's all gone. It's
gone.
I just, yeah, absolutely.
But they would always talk about the website was your first point of contact with your potential buyer. And that was going to be the first indication that they got of your brand, an impression they got of your brand. And that's actually pretty quickly shifted. And it's very often your social media that people will engage with first. And, they say that, a dead feed will create some bad connotations in the potential consumer. And so staying really active is just becoming more and more important if, again, 80% of folks are going to look you up there first.
Yeah, preach. So, yes, a dead feed indicates struggle or death. From a business standpoint, if there's nothing on your feed, consumers will probably think that you're no longer in business and you just kind of, ghosted the community from that standpoint. So, but it doesn't have to be so incredibly time intensive. It's going to take time, right? Authentic content, think tanking, what great content ideas exist for your business. You can use AI to help be a think tank partner. I do. It's a great tool in that way, but it takes time. So, what are ways that businesses can use different SMMs, with or without AI, that could really help them save some time, right? For those businesses that aren't ready to go out to an outside marketer and for whatever reason have to handle it in-house, how can we make it manageable for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, my first instinct is to say, outsource to someone who knows what they're doing if you can't really put the time and effort. But since you added the caveat, I'll stay away from that.
Or how marketers, right? We need to breathe too,
Exactly.
And it feels like sometimes we're underwater. Yeah, so let's include marketers in there.
There we go. Yeah, and I think this is where, especially now with some of those AI tools, right? Like, what does AI excel in terms of that content? There's data-driven content. There's trend-based content. What hashtags? All of that is great content that AI really excels in. In terms of the other types, not every piece of content needs to be this incredibly perfected thing that you put out there, and don't let perfection be the enemy of good. I'm sure I screwed that saying up, but there's a saying that is something like that.
I love it. That's tattoo
Um,
worthy. I'm getting it.
and just get the content out there, which I'm notoriously bad about. The other thing too is the internal tasks that you might have that you can use AI to help with, whether that's optimal post time scheduling, whether that is, there's, your comment management, all of these different things that you can leverage AI to really help with at this point and save time as a social media marketer.
So for those that aren't familiar with like optimized post time scheduling, right? That sounds very alien, right? Very future. Like, what is that? See, tell us all what that means.
So I can tell you how we do it, which
Yeah.
is uh, basically when someone loads social media profiles into the system, we will analyze everything about their historical data. So we'll say, for the different types of content, so images, videos, links, long captions, short captions, you name it, what time did their particular audience engage best with that content? And the reason we do it that way is we've actually found that you could have two almost identical brands across the street from each other, maybe both coffee shops, that will have completely different audiences for whatever reason. And so if I was to just say, well, coffee shop content tends to perform best at this time, that's incorrect. There is a potentially completely different set of customers for the different types. And so for us, with that algorithm, when somebody drops content on the calendar, we can tell them when their audience is most likely to engage with that piece of content. We've seen north of 50% increase in engagement with optimal post time scheduling.
We have two using it. And full disclosure, this is not a sponsored podcast, but I am a fan of the Cloud Campaign. I am wearing my swag.
No.
I love my Cloud Campaign swag. It's just and I'm a fan because it's just a really good tool. Like it's there's so much. I mean, you're on social media, maybe not as much as me. You're a busy guy, but when you can step away and scroll through a feed for a second, I would venture you're probably inundated with AI sponsored content or ads or whatever the case, right? I mean, there's like 8 trillion different AI tools that exist out there. And like, I'm interested in all of them, but when you deep dive into them, it's like, some of these aren't great, right? It's like, this is flash in the pan. I see it, right? And maybe they can prove me wrong, but then there's some other great stuff. But for me, Cloud Campaign's just such a reliable tool. We use optimized our post scheduling that's optimized based on highest performing engagement. And the other thing I really like, and you touched on it, but would love for you to talk a little bit more about why this is important, is short caption with with a graphic versus long caption no graphic, right? You analyze the content structure as well, which is a huge task for anyone that has to do it manually. And I love that. For me, Cloud Campaign does that for me. My agency's content is going to have different higher performing types of content versus, higher education client, that we're managing, or, someone in the real estate industry. Talk to me a little bit about why it's so important to dive that deep into what performs well.
So first of all, I didn't know we made a black sweater, and I don't have one, and so
Dude, it's
I'm
awesome.
definitely
I look
jealous of.
good, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
When you guys dropped this, I went and got it quickly.
I don't know who I got to talk to about that, but I got to get one of those. That's cool. In terms of the optimal, analyzing the content. The reason that we do that. So, for instance, let's say you drop a video, and you can say, okay, well, videos perform best at noon or whatever it might be. Well, or my audience is most active at Mondays at noon or whatever it might be. That might be true, but what type of content are they actually going to see? Because if they're sitting at their desk in the office, chances are they're not going to watch a video, for instance. So that video might actually perform better at 5 or 6 o'clock at night when they're back at home and have some time to, hang out and chill and turn their volume on and watch a video. As opposed to the other short bites that if someone's quickly scrolling between things, they will actually interact with. And this is just true across the board, which is why we took the approach of analyzing each type of content and then the time that type performs best.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of businesses that are doing their own social media, um, or even marketers as well. And I'll throw myself in too, so people don't think I'm speaking ill will to my competition. But sometimes, you forget that you have to design content around how human beings or how consumers go about their day to day. Socials to entertain. You're absolutely right, right? A video at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday probably will not perform as well as 6 p.m. that night, or maybe even noon to 1 o'clock, because they're out at lunch, right? And they're trying to reset their brain for the second half of the day. So that's one thing I love about Cloud Campaign is I love data. Data doesn't lie. And when you can take that data and apply it to a real life situation to better your marketing strategy, it's just chef's kiss, gold standard. Thank you, Cloud Campaign. You complete me. But one thing that I really like, and Cloud Campaign really turned me on to it to a degree, is like evergreen content versus that real time content. I want to go back to that a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about some different type of content that could be good evergreen versus like give me an example of a good just evergreen content. I'll do one, right? I'll probably take the most obvious, like that Monday inspo quote, right? It's like you can use AI, create these quotes, go into Canva, create these graphics, bulk upload it into Cloud Campaign. I've just made 52 pieces of content that will post every Monday. That will be different. And it took me 10 minutes, which is insane. Yep. What's another good evergreen piece of content that you really find works well?
Yeah. And, some of this does depend on your industry, and some industries lend themselves more to it. But the how-tos and the tips and tricks, that type of content always goes really well. People engage with that and watch it. I do all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a good way, depending on if you can really get good traction on that piece of content. When someone goes to Google something, they might actually find that piece of content, or YouTube it, for instance. There's also, educational content's a big part of that. Entertaining, memes and short videos. That content tends to perform really well, and it's great evergreen, right? You can continue to reuse that. You can recycle it. It's probably relevant now. It's probably relevant 6 months from now. The reality is, the way that the algorithms work, right? It's about 5% of your audience will see anything you post organically. And so there's no reason, and I think a lot of marketers are starting to embrace this, even though they were totally against it for years, but there's no reason you can't reuse content. And I think that's a trend that's continuing, because especially if you have something that does do well with engagement now, if you post it 13 months from now, no one's going to remember that you posted before. They'll just see it and like it again.
Yeah, I had a gentleman by the name of Austin Armstrong, great social media marketer, started up syllabi.io. It's like AI driven, started as, I think it was a short form vertical video content creator, and now it's in long form, and they're doubling down on faceless videos and, marketing to people that want to monetize. And he, like, everything he posted, just from a standpoint of like, he a lot of what he did was like, here are 5 tips about AI that, feel illegal to know, right? And you have a great hook right at the beginning, great value proposition, and just like every piece of content turned to gold. And one thing he mentioned was reusing content, right? Especially content that's performing well. And, having a tool, having a tool that you're managing your social media out of makes it easy to see a snapshot of like what content performed great. So when you have a gap, throw that piece of content back in, let it perform well again, and it'll just keep helping the algorithm. Now you mentioned you mentioned like real-time content, kind of the other end of the spectrum of evergreen. You mentioned like Meet the Team. I have one in my mind that Cloud Campaign does that I really love. Maybe canine centric, but it's I really love. I don't want to give it away, but I think that's a great example. But what's an example of a like a real time piece of content that you find tends to work well?
Yeah, I think that people just generally like animals more than they like humans. I don't know. For me, if you watch, this sounds terrible, but if you watch like a movie or a show and a person dies, you're usually not that sad. But if the dog goes, it's like immediate waterworks and
Dogs and babies. It's dogs
100%.
and babies. People love dogs
Yes.
and babies. Yep.
Yeah. I can't watch anything where anything happens to the pets. So people just love their animals. I know for us, we keep track. We call them, I think we have like a fur baby counter on our website or something like that.
Yep.
Um, and so, yeah, we often will try and get the team to submit pictures of their dogs often, especially around Halloween, best costume, and that content always performs great.
It
So
does. Yeah. And for you, it's like, so Cloud Campaign, um, it looks like it's a pet friendly office, right? Hopefully I'm not.
no, don't worry.
So a lot of that, a lot of what I see is like, what whose pets in the office today, and usually like it's this stoic picture. Sometimes it's of the pet doing actual, like appearing to do actual work, which is hysterical. Like the only thing better in featuring pets or pets doing human things. Like there it is. There's the key for everything. If no one got anything else out of this podcast today, pets doing human things and babies, you can't go wrong, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
So
make your team submit pet photos and use those. You will get good engagement.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I will be cutting that piece as a short form vertical, and
Very good.
hopefully I'll go viral. We'll go viral, and we'll get like that island in the Caymans and soak up the money, right?
I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we kind of go to like the last piece, which is going to be, I think a cool thought experiment. I want to talk about though, right? So we love AI. I love AI. I think you love AI too. AI is great. But there are risks. And there are very real risks. I had a client before becoming a client, did Monday inspo quotes, and they used AI and it misquoted Winston Churchill, and Meta froze their page.
Wow.
It was early in. It was like March 2023, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're just going to dive blindly into AI." And yeah, their page is back. Lessons learned, I think, all around. We didn't do that, I have to say. Um, there's a risk there, a very simple, innocent risk. But I mean, there's ethics conversations. There's risks that need to be understood. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that. Like, how does Cloud Campaign approach it? What's your personal philosophy behind it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, there's definitely risks. It's not perfect yet. And I don't know when it will achieve that. Again, it continues to get better and better, but I think the term they currently use for it, which is a bit creepy, is hallucinations. And I've definitely seen them. It's important to still continue to have a bit of a human touch on all of this. I know just yesterday I was reading an article and it was about Gemini responding to a prompt that was a totally benign prompt with some pretty bad stuff. And
Yeah,
did you
I know
read
what you're
that?
talking. I know what you're talking about. It's like put glue on pizza, or it. There was one even worse about a person in a bit of distress,
Yep,
and
that's probably the one I'm
yeah,
thinking of. Yeah,
yeah, it's scary. It's scary. Yeah,
it's totally scary. And I've seen some pretty wild things. We generate hundreds of thousands, if not actually into the millions of AI content items a month now. Um, and I've seen some pretty wild stuff, right? And you're talking 99% of the time it's going to be great, but you are going to get those hallucinations every now and then. And so I think it's just really important to keep a human eye on things and continue to monitor for those hallucinations that come up.
yeah. I think the pizza one was like someone put in like, how do I thicken my pizza sauce? And it's like putting glue, like Elmer's glue. Like, just add some glue and it'll do the trick. So definitely, yes, it definitely can hallucinate. One thing that I like about I'm going to keep hyping it a little bit because it's like all of the cool stuff that I like Cloud Campaign does is, so Cloud Campaign has Caption AI, which is the one of the AI components to creating content for Cloud Campaign. One thing it does really great is it will create content based on platform.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about why that's important. What that
Yeah.
is. Talk to me about what that is and why that's important.
Yeah, and this kind of comes back to creating content that's optimized to perform, and then also saving as much time as possible in doing that. And so one thing that we will do, you can have our system write the caption for you, and then again, optimize it for each and every platform. So one of the things we talked about earlier in terms of staying relevant, you also don't know where someone's going to look you up. They might try to find you on Twitter. They might try and find you on LinkedIn, Facebook. You don't really know where. And so it's important to kind of stay active across the platforms. And it's becoming easier to do so with tools like ours without pitching ourselves too hard. And there's, others out there, but
pitch it, man. Your tool's great.
Great. I appreciate that. But yeah, so when you generate that caption, you can tell our system optimize it for LinkedIn versus Instagram. And so for instance, the difference there might be Instagram. It's not uncommon to have a lot more hashtags versus the content that you would generally post out on LinkedIn. And so our system will automatically take that into account. There's a ton of prompt engineering behind the scenes. Our engineering team has spent a ton of time on that to make sure that content is set up to perform the best, whether, no matter the platform it's going to.
Yeah, one thing I use it for is optimizing an organic, non-AI generated Facebook post for Twitter or X, because of character limits. It does awesome. It's an awesome, for anyone that uses Cloud Campaign, I mean, because that's hard, right? I mean, unless, I'm a wordy guy. I think everyone knows that. So it's hard to take this beautiful, creative caption and boil it down into its essence. And Cloud Campaign, beyond just creating content in entirety using AI, it does a really good job at that. Saves a lot of time and headache and frustration. So thank you, Cloud Campaign. We love you. So as we wind down a little bit, I want to do something fun because because I'm a nerd and I think you're a nerd and I think we'll have fun on this. So talk to me a little bit about what. So let's do this. So talk to me a little bit about how SMBs can use social media to establish themselves as experts in their field, right? But I want to do that through talk to me a little bit about a brand that you follow that you just, from a marketer, from a consumer, but also from a marketer's perspective, a brand that you really enjoy and you really like. Talk to me a little bit about how that brand made themselves into, how they support their brand and how they created themselves into a subject matter expert.
Yeah. That's a fun thought experiment. So, I think what marketers have to remember, and often this goes away from the business owner who might not even understand the marketing strategy, is do not constantly clobber your potential customers over the head with sales pitches. No one likes it. No one's going to think of your brand in a great way if that's all you're doing is pushing content out there to promote yourself and sell yourself. Putting content out there that's fun, that's engaging, that might be informative, that content will establish yourself as a thought leader and will just overall lead to better results than just sales pitches over and over again. And I think...
Yeah, it's like the jab, jab, hook, right? It's exactly that jab, jab, hook idea. Yep.
Yes, exactly right. And I think a brand that does this that no one would generally think about as being kind of fun is the TSA. And it's one of the main brands that I follow and actually engage with their content. They are constantly posting, things that people try to bring on a plane, which are pretty wild. And there's a lot of these interactions every single day. So they have lots of good content to post about. They really love their puns over there. And then every once in a while, they'll post something that's actually informative and helpful as well. I think the TSA is maybe the best follow on Instagram if people are looking for one.
The TSA, the Transportation Security Administration?
I didn't even know that's what it stood for, but yes.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Usually people be like, Nike does it great. So thank you. That is one. I do not follow the TSA. I'll have to follow that. So you said they'll post like crazy things people bring on a plane, which could be, I guess, maybe a little controversial if to think about it, because like there's that too soon, right? Like the too soon idea, right? So that's kind of like the, when I talk about jab, jab, hook, it's like two posts that are funny, informative, to entertain versus one to pitch or solicit, pitch a product or solicit a business. TSA. All
One
right.
thing they've done that's actually a bit unique, and I think is a really good idea, whoever's running over there, they asked their audience to submit questions to them of, hey, can I bring this on a plane? Um, and there's often probably products on there that other people have been interested in. They asked, to send all of their questions in, and they will create their content around those questions, around the items that people submitted. And I think that content performs really well also.
So if you look them up, well, I don't follow them. I'm getting ready to follow them now. But when you look them up, their tagline, the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration's tagline says travel tips and dad joke hits.
There we go.
That's hysterical. Well. And
yeah.
They have 1.4 million followers. That's, now 1.4001 or whatever. That's hysterical. Government official, priceless princess of puns, kings of canines, teller of travel tips. That's funny. That's interesting. Yeah, whoever is managing their social, give me a call. That would be hysterical to talk about. I love it. That's awesome. Well, so talk to me a little bit about, if you can, because like the landscape of social media, really any digital marketing, it changes so quickly. It's like the waves in the ocean. Talk to me a little bit about some things you're seeing going into 2025 that SMBs and really anyone that's using social media can leverage. Maybe like some short-term trends that you see versus trends that you think may go through 2025. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing that could help give a SMB a leg up against their competitor.
Yeah. I will say now more than ever, God, I'm trying to think about how long I've been doing this now, but now more than ever, the market's just evolving. It's just evolving so rapidly, and, AI is disrupting our industry quite a bit, for better and for worse. So in terms of it's even hard to predict what's going to be the case at the end of next year, potentially, because I know that there's things that I thought at the beginning of this year that are already different. But trends that I'm seeing right now are definitely more AI generated content. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. I think there's a larger push to be active across the social media channels, and especially as more come out, like Threads, for instance, and then there is, I would say, AI generated images are getting better and better. And I'm really curious to see what happens with that going into 2025. Because I know at the beginning of this year, everything that it generated, there's humans with like 7 fingers and the eyes were out of position, all the language was off. And all of a sudden now it's actually pretty good.
Did you see the video that the early on video AI generated was like Will Smith eating pasta? I don't know if you saw that. It was the early on. Check it out. Like, because they just kind of did an update. Like, that was if someone were to say like AI sucks at creating images earlier on, that's what they brought up, because it's like, it's this very weird amorphic Will Smith, like just scooping with his hands pasta into his mouth, and it's falling out everywhere. And then they redid it a few months ago, I feel like, and it's like, it's so much better. It's interesting to see like what it was, but see, and in that, as silly as it is, it's interesting to see like in such a short amount of time what it was versus what it is.
Yeah.
The evolution of AI is it is a bit scary, right? I mean, and especially with so much competition. So there's, so from an AI standpoint, I've been really experimenting with like AI stacking a lot. Like, take a piece of content from ChatGPT, where it will usually even still be like, in the world of, or in the ever evolving world, that's how I'll always start any sentence. And then throw it into like Claude to humanize it a little bit. Claude does a great job, I think, of creating a humanized version of AI text. Any AI tool that you're really using, like Perplexity? I love Perplexity. I don't know if you use that. I mean, what's saved in your toolbar on your browser?
Well, and apologies, we talked about dogs, and you're probably hearing my giant dog barking in the background, who always likes to make things difficult on me. But
you know what? Shout out to Riverside. Funny enough, through their AI audio enhancer, it'll take that out. So
Really?
it's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
Riverside does a great job. We use Riverside for anyone listening to record our podcast. Man, it is like their AI tools are nuts. I mean, it's nuts. That's it. I don't have a great mic. I'll sound like, Joe Rogan, with his $50,000 mic or whatever once AI's done with it. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
great.
Well, what about you? What are you using in the AI world?
Yeah, so I don't create as much content anymore, and probably for the best, and I'm sure our marketing team appreciates that. But I use AI for mostly data analysis at this point, and it does a really good job. And every business owner out there, knowing your data, understanding your data, following the trends, and honestly, even the marketing trends with that, is just so important. And AI does a really good job at analyzing all of that. So that's usually what I use it for at this point. And then there's, of course, every now and then, if the team pushes me enough to create like a LinkedIn post, I will write something and then have AI make it sound a little bit better than what I wrote.
There you go. Yeah. There. What do you think about like leveraging pop culture strategy in your content? You think that's gonna keep its legs through 2025?
It's a good question.
I feel like it has to, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
it's like
People are
it,
seeing it.
yeah, that's where like the best memes come from. It's like
Totally.
that is memes, right?
Yeah.
That is the world of memes. But yeah, so I think if there's like one kind of content that you stick with, don't take your brand so seriously.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Pull a little pop culture in. Cloud Campaign actually opened my eyes to that.
More brands are embracing that, right? Like, how often now are you seeing these large, multi-billion-dollar brands that are coming up with these quick, you know, witty remarks on other people's content that's just not what you would expect from a multi-billion-dollar brand. I think Zuckerberg is embracing this entirely and really going away from this more staunch persona, and it's working really well for him. And I think brands are kind of embracing that.
he put out on social, I think earlier today. Yeah, because man, Zuckerberg, man, what like talk about the evolution of an AI being. Like
Yeah.
he's like he went from like a Borg in front of Congress to like being thrown a can of beer while he's wakeboarding with like the American flag on July 4th, on social. But he posted it's like the Tyson Paul fight tonight. Jake Paul like stepped on Tyson's foot during the stare downs and Tyson slapped him pretty hard too. It's so that's becoming like that's the pop culture meme right now. That'll last probably until tomorrow. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So what anything going on in the Cloud Campaign side that as a user I can be looking at coming down the pike? You guys just like optimized your UX and your UI, and man, that is awesome. Like it was great before, and I was like, when I heard you were doing it, I'm like, sucks. Like don't fix a wheel that's not broken. But man, like you just like it's a better wheel now. It's awesome. It's so much quicker, right? It makes content quicker. What else is going on in Cloud Campaign side?
Yeah, well, I won't reveal too much, but we've talked a lot of it about AI. We've talked a lot about AI generated images, and so I cannot confirm or deny that that's going to be a big focus for
All
us.
right, exclusive. That's my
Yeah.
exclusive. Heard it here first. Awesome, awesome. Well, very cool. Well, listen, for anybody that handles social media for their business organization, if you're an influencer, whatever, agencies, I mean, anyone who's handling social media, you need a social media marketing tool. It will make your life easier. Wherever you're listening to this, check out the description or the captions. We're going to throw in an affiliate link in. Hook a brother up. Cloud Campaign's awesome. Not only is it, in my opinion, the best social media platform that exists out there from a management standpoint, but it's also super affordable. I don't know how you do it. So thanks for that, for us little guys trying to do big things in the world. And keep on keeping on. I appreciate it. Ross, this was fun, man. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. You gave a lot of great information I hope people can take something away from.
Well, I appreciate you having me. This was fun. I'm glad we got to do this again, and anytime, I'm always happy to come back. This is great.
Yeah, no, thank you. So cloudcampaign.com. Go find their socials, follow it. Go find my socials, follow it, share this out, tell your friends, tell your family, tell strangers. Cloud Campaign's great. We love you. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Probably in the next 9 to 12 months, I'm going to be calling you again. I think this should be like an annual thing. You should be like our token returning guest every year.
There we go.
Awesome. All right, friends. Well, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Go to cloudcampaign.com, go to their socials, follow them, check out our socials as well. Please share this out. Make us famous. That'd be awesome. And until next time.
Yes, I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Five Dubs Marketing Pros is hosted by me, Kevin Barrier. Our executive producer is MDDC Executive Director Rebecca Snyder. Post-production by Caroline Pecora. Our theme music is by Azulu Studio. A special thank you to our guests for being with us. You can find 5 Dubs and 5 Dubs Marketing Pros on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast.